Hello, this is Bailey, and welcome to a special bonus episode of Let's Play SimCity! Today, I thought I'd show you guys the process that I go through when I'm preparing to build a new city or planning things out, essentially. Personally, I like using a simple spreadsheet program like, I'm using OpenOffice Calc, or you could use Excel, Google Sheets, whatever you want. There's plenty of free spreadsheet programs around. And then, I just like to make a picture of the whole city per cell in the spreadsheet. So let's see. The first thing I would do if I was using a blank area is I want to change the row and, the row height and the column width here. So let's see, let's go with rows, height, and set it to that amount there. And then for the width, let's see, that over here. And I like the width to be slightly more than the height because I don't know why, but it looks more square to me that way. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that's how I do it. And then, let's see, so in order to visualize a city in a spreadsheet, I like to change the background color of all the tiles there. So just, at least in OpenOffice Calc, just right-click, Format Cells, and then you got this background tab with all these different colors to choose from. And this seemed to be the closest to what SimCity uses for empty tiles on a map. No forests or rivers or anything there. So I like using this color. It looks more like a peach color than an orange, but whatever works for you. And then, we gotta create a blank map here. So what I do is, every map in SimCity is 100 tiles tall. Let me see if I can get over there. So 100 rows of the spreadsheet, and then 120 tiles wide. So that ends up being over here. And, that's just the basic framework of the map. And then you don't need to put, parks or forests onto a map. That has no bearing on building a city, at least not to me anyway. But the water in a city does get in the way. So whatever map you end up using, I go through every single tile one by one and figure out where they are, so that way I can know what I have available to work with on a particular map. And I could plan out where to build bridges, or if I want to use landfills on the water, whatever you've got there, that can work there. But I've already done this for map number 61. Let me zoom out here a little bit so you guys can see the whole thing there. So there you go. And then we can start filling it in with things. Now, once I've gotten the regular, or the blank map done, then I want to make a map for the different subdivisions or regions of the map, depending on what I'm looking to analyze. So here, what I do is I just alternate between green and orange there for an 8x8 region. So we got one there, and then I alternate every other one, just like a checkerboard or something, until we get all the way to the edge. The 8x8 grid is used for police and fire department coverage throughout your city. So this is what I would use to determine, hey, here's where I've got some crime going on. Let's figure out where I need to put a police department to deal with all that. So with the map, so it's 120 tiles wide, so divided by 8, you've got 15 columns of 8x8 regions there. Now, I know what you're thinking, viewers. Bailey, 100 tiles tall isn't divisible by 8. Whatever do we do with that? Well, when you ever get to the bottom, going every other 8x8 region, the bottom row is just 8x4. That's, yeah, for some reason, that's just how they do it. That's why I put a lot of police departments in the bottom row of my cities. So that way I can get that area covered there. Because if I put a police department up here, it'll help it, but not as much. So when I wanted to get rid of all the crime in the city, that's why I did that there. So whenever you have an 8x8 region and you want to put a police department or a fire department in there, let's take a look at how that all works. So a police department would be 3x3 tiles. So let's say I put the police department right here. The game will assign that police department to an 8x8 region where the center tile of the police department or fire department is. So in this case, this police department would belong to this 8x8 region, or if I did it like that, then that would belong to this 8x8 region, and so on and so forth like that. And when you do that with a police department or fire department, let me get closer to the middle there. So not only do you get the police coverage for the 8x8 area that it resides in, but it also has a radius to it. So like here, you've got most of the value from the police or fire department, and then any of the 4 8x8 regions that are adjacent to the center one, they'll have about half of the coverage you get here, and then any of the 8x8 regions that are diagonal to the center one will get half of the adjacent ones. And then the 8x8 regions that are 2 regions away from the middle one, those will get half of the diagonals. So you got the bulk of it here, half that, half that, half that. And I think some of it does go like up to 3 regions away, but it's so little it's not worth taking into account, really. So I just look at the center area and then any of the ones that are 2 regions away from the center one as far as planning all that goes. And yeah, these 8x8 regions go into the water too. They still count. That's why I put some of my police departments on the water using a landfill, so that way I could get every single little nook and cranny there. And then, okay, so with after the 8x8 regions, then we've got the 4x4 regions of the city. And this is primarily used for determining land value, and especially with gifts. So the way that it works is, let's say you have a 3x3 gift, any 4x4 region that has a tile, even just one tile of a gift residing in it, will max out the land value of the 4x4 region there. So whenever you're planning out a city, you want to make sure that wherever you put your rails or roads or whatever you're using for your framework, you want to make sure that all of your gifts are covering at least one tile of 4x4 regions there, like that. So, and I already did that all in advance when I was building my cities before. And then after the 4x4 regions, we also have the 2x2 regions, which are primarily used for, well, it is used for land value. There's 4x4 land value, and then the 2x2 land value is the one that you actually see in the game on the map there. And let's see, 2x2, the 2x2 regions are also used for population density, and that's mostly important for determining crime, which also uses 2x2 regions, as well as population density. So, like, let me see if I can show something here. Okay, so let's say I have a residential zone in this 3x3 area, and then I put another residential zone. Well, actually, let me do this the other way. Then I have another residential zone that goes up here. So now I've got the two right next to each other. With the way population density works, the center of the residential zone is where that density would be. So we have this 2x2 region with the one, and this with the other. Since they're not next to each other, the population is going to be less dense, and if I, say, put two residential zones next to each other like that, they would have a hard time developing if they don't have anything else around them. But in general, that's not really a big problem. It's only like a problem as I'm building a city, let's say. And 2x2 regions are also used for determining the center of the city for land value, which is pretty important. So let's take a look at the last city that I made there on medium difficulty. So I've got everything all nice and planned out. So how do we determine where the center of the city is? And it's not as simple as just look at the center of the map, like around here, because not every tile of the city is going to be occupied by something. So the way the game figures out where the center of the city is it takes the XY coordinates of every unit in your city and then averages them together in order to determine, well, where the center is, like that. So because we have this river going through mostly the southeast quadrant of the city, the center of the city is going to be a bit northwest of the center of the map there. So yeah, there's a difference between the center of the city and the center of the map, and that can be important for where you decide to put your residential zones, as far as getting everything to develop there. So the way that I go about calculating where the center of the city is, well, you notice I replaced all the letters of the zones with just a number 1 there, where the center of each zone is. So with 3x3 zones, that's pretty easy to figure out. But for 6x6 or 4x4 zones, the way the game determines what the center of that area is it takes the middle 4 tiles of that unit, and then the upper left one of those 4 is where the center is. So like where my airport is, that's where that would be. Or if I've got a power plant over here, the middle 4 right there, that's where the game uses that for determining the center of the city. And then in order to calculate everything out, I just create a little table over here. So let's take a look at the Y coordinates of the city. So like here is row 1, and you look in the bottom there, and, well, there's nothing there. So yeah, we just got 0 in that Y coordinate. But for 2, yeah, we got 32 units that have the center of them on this Y coordinate. So you'd want to go 0, then 32, or whatever you've got for building your own city. Then we've got, yeah, 1 for the airports, nothing there, and 31 in the next one. So 1, 0, 31, and so on and so forth until you go through the entirety of your city, and then add them all up to get the total number of units that you have in your city. And then, in order to figure out the average of them, I would multiply the y-coordinate by the number of units at that coordinate. So multiply them together and then do that for every row there. And then add up all the products to get the sum of them. And then divide that by the number of units in order to determine the average y-coordinate of your city, in which case that's 47. So it's a little north of the middle of the city there. And just like everything in game coding, everything gets truncated. So that's why I use the truncate function there to calculate that. I think it's a little over 47, but I just truncate it, and that seems to work. And then you would do that again for all of the x coordinates, but that's a little tricky here because, yeah, they use letters and instead of numbers. I just look at, like, letter Z would be the 26th letter of the alphabet, so that's just how I remember where I am there. So, yeah, same thing as with the y-coordinates, but this time just use your columns. We got, wait, what was that? Okay, so 0, 3, 28, and put that in the table there. And then, again, do the same thing, just do that for every single column. And then add up the number of units, multiply the coordinates by the units to get the product, add all those up, divide that by the number of units, boom, you've got your x coordinate for the center of the city. So we got 47, 57. So if we go back to our 2x2 grid here, okay, we got 47, and then let's see, AZ would be 52. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's our center of the city. Though it does expand to the 2x2 region as far as land value is concerned. And then, once you know where the center of the city is, we can start figuring out where land value would occur. So yeah, 47, 57, right there. And then the 2x2 regions that are adjacent to it also share the land value for the center of the city. Now, this is assuming you don't have gifts or parks or anything else influencing land value. But it's a good way to know where you can build residential zones without the aid of a gift and still level them up to 5 at least. So from the highest land value area in the center of the city, then it expands for 8 2x2 regions, or 16 tiles. So you get a little less land value in that area. And then again, for another 8 2x2 regions, a little less land value. Then another 8 for a little less than that. And finally, everything else in the city goes dark, and any residential zones that I would build outside of the green radius of the city would have a very difficult time developing up to level 5, unless you start building your city in a corner there. Because the center of the city would be, well, let's see, yeah, somewhere around there. But I'm talking about at the very end of a city, once you've got everything built and filled in and everything like that. And then, okay, so we got all of that figured out. So yeah, just move that around there. And then we've got the rails here for my framework of the city. You could do whatever you want, but this just makes it a little easier for me anyway. So let's say I put a residential zone right there. So since the center tile is in that area, it'll probably be able to develop into, or up to level 5 without the aid of a gift, and as long as you don't have a lot of crime or pollution in that area. So like this area would work too, this area would work, this one would not, because the center tile is just outside of the radius there. But this, wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, but this one right there will work, even though most of the tiles are outside of it. The game only uses the center tile for determining land value with all that. So we got the framework going there, and then I like to determine what's the outermost area where I could place my residential zones. So yeah, like this one doesn't work, but this one will there. And then just kind of put a border around there so I know don't build residential zones outside of that area. I could replace some of these with police or fire departments if necessary. And I might build, say, some commercial zones inside of that area if I've got gifts or I need a valid destination or something. But in general, everything that is inside that radius will mostly be residential zones. Now, I know what you're thinking, viewers. H.C. Bailey, what are you doing up top there? You don't have residential zones there. And for the top, the top 2 rows of, top 6 rows, I guess, of the city, I don't want to put residential zones there. Because, with the top one there, any residential or commercial zones that you put up there will not be able to develop into, say, a C-top or an R-top for some reason due to a bug. So I don't want to put any of them up there. It'll, try to develop into a C-top, even if you have the land value to do that, or an R-top, but then it'll just flicker back and forth between an R-top and 2 residential zones, and so on. So, yeah, don't put them up there. Also, I don't want to put them up there because if I had a residential zone here, and I had one of them looking for a valid destination, it would go up, hit the dead end, and since a residential zone is not a valid destination for another residential zone, it just fizzles and fails to find a valid destination. It doesn't turn around and look the other way. It picks a direction at random to start with and goes from there. So I don't want residential zones at the very end of these rails. I want to have some sort of valid destination. Most likely industrial zones I'd put up, I'd put up there, and then a layer of commercial zones as a barrier to the residential zones so they won't have to worry about the pollution from the industrial zones. But how do we put all of this to use in planning out a new city? Find out next time on Let's Play SimCity. This is H.G. Bailey, signing off. Have a good day.